There is a popular bag associated with migrants worldwide. In Germany, it is called the Totenkoffer. In the US, it is called Chinatown tote. In Guyana, it is called the Guyanese Samsonite. Some countries call it the refugee bag. This seemingly ordinary bag, known across West Africa as Ghana Must Go, carries a story far heavier than its own woven plastic can hold. It is a symbol of a tumultuous chapter in history, a reminder of mass deportation and the harsh realities of xenophobia. Allow me to take you on a journey that will reveal the real story of how the bag called Ghana Must Go earned its name. My name is Landon Tungchama, and you're welcome to another episode. On 17 January 1983, the Nigerian president Shehu Shagari declared the expulsion of estimated 2 million undocumented migrants living in the country. Half of them were Ghanaians. If they don't leave, they should be arrested and tried and sent back to their homes. Illegal immigrants under normal circumstances should not be given any notice whatsoever. Millions of immigrants with no papers were told to get out within 2 weeks or risk jail time. If you break a law, then you have to pay for it, said the president. Cringe, right? Well, this story began long before the expulsion. It is the story of sibling rivalry. But this time, the siblings are nations. Nigerians and Ghanaians have a strong rivalry relationship. If football fans debate Messi versus Ronaldo, West Africans debate Nigeria versus Ghana. Whether it is who makes the best music, who has the better football team, or even yes, who makes the best jollof rice. Nigeria and Ghana are always compared and always competing. But were they always like this? The answer is no. Where did all this begin? To get there, let's take a quick history lesson. The geographic locations known as Nigeria and Ghana today were both colonized by Great Britain. They share a common official language, English, and have similar institutions and government parastatal. In 1957, when Ghana gained independence, Philip Beho wrote the music for Ghanaian national anthem. A few months later, he was still writing another song. When asked, he said, "I'm writing another song for Nigeria when they become independent." You see, Ghana and Nigeria were Buddhists. They were siblings who were supposed to march Africa into greatness. Yet they've been at each other's throats since the 1960s. The most potent place to see this rivalry is in the trivial issue of jollof rice. Folks, if you have been to a Nigerian or Ghanaian party, you will know about jollof rice. It is not just food. It is a battleground of pride. The debate between Ghanaian jollof and Nigerian jollof is an eternal one that only the gods will settle, if there ever be a settlement at all. But beyond football and jollof rice, the two countries have a sky against each other economically and politically, each pushing to be the leader of the region. This rivalry reflects something bigger, a competition between two West African giants, both striving to outshine the other. If Nigeria and Ghana have such a strong rivalry, how then did Ghanaians find themselves in Nigeria, undocumented, and at the mercy of the Nigerian law? In the late 1950s, Nigeria hit the jackpot with the discovery of crude oil. By the 1970s, the economy of Nigeria was booming. An unprecedented economic surge began, and foreign companies rushed in. First Shell, then Mobil, and then Agib set up shop in the country to drill oil commercially, bringing thousands of jobs. Suddenly, Nigeria was the land of opportunities. New industries sprouted, cities expanded, and life for many Nigerians got much better. There was an influx of people from farms into cities. The influx came not just from within Nigeria, but from across the region. From Togo, Benin, Senegal, Cameroon, and Ghana, everybody was going. There was money in Nigeria. The oil money was steady, and hopes were high that Nigeria could prosper despite the brutal military regimes that met that period. In the 1970s, the economy exploded when oil prices soared worldwide. The golden decade had arrived, and the country became Africa's wealthiest, earning the title Giant of Africa. By 1974, Nigeria's oil wells were spitting some 2.3 million barrels per day. The standard of living improved. The government of Nigeria initiated grant projects funded by oil wealth. Demand for labor skyrocketed. While the Nigerian land was dispensing wealth, its closest English-speaking neighbor was going through quite the opposite. The Ghanaian economy had hit rock bottom. A deadly mix of famine and military coups was precipitated by a crash in the price of cocoa and the 1966 coup which ousted Kwame Nkrumah. Ghana was the world's largest producer of cocoa in the 1960s, but the 1966 coup and the crash in cocoa prices had a strain on the Ghanaian economy. By 1977, the inflation rate in Ghana had hit a record of over 115% with an annual change of about 66%. To many Ghanaians, Ghana was hell, nothing was working, the country was close to a failed state. For the average Ghanaian, coming to Nigeria wasn't just a chance to earn a better living, it was about survival. At the time, the country's population hovered around the 7 million mark, but several people decided to journey east and try their fortunes in prosperous Nigeria. Not only did Ghanaians decide on their own to try out their fortunes in this new prosperous nation, but some recruiters from Nigeria came to Ghana looking for people who would like to teach or take up casual jobs, the jobs Nigerians themselves were unwilling to do. They work as teachers, traders, laborers, whatever job they could find, they took it. The streets of Lagos, Ibadan and Kano were filled with Ghanaian workers, blending into the fabric of Nigerian life. Offices, barber shops, ice cream parlors, beauty salons, restaurants and brothels were filled with Ghanaians and the neighbors from the west. Life was good. For a while, it seemed like a perfect symbiosis. Nigerians and Ghanaians lived side by side, sharing the prosperity that Nigeria's oil boom had provided. But like all good things, this golden era wouldn't last forever. By the 1980s, everything changed. The late 1970s brought a stark shift in Nigeria's economic landscape. The oil boom, once a seemingly endless fountain of wealth, began to crash. Global oil prices plummeted, sending shockwaves through the Nigerian economy. Construction projects ground to a halt, and unemployment soared. The once welcoming atmosphere towards foreign workers soared as competition for scarce jobs intensified. As the economy grew sour, so did the standard of living for many Nigerians. Suddenly, the jobs that had been abundant were disappearing, and the prosperity that had seemed so certain was slipping through their fingers. People started becoming hungry, angry, and frustrated. And when people are angry, they look for someone to blame. Could this be where things began to go wrong for foreigners living in Nigeria? Absolutely. The Nigerian government, grappling with its own economic woes, turned its attention to the growing number of undocumented immigrants. The Ghanaian community, once seen as a valuable asset, now became a convenient scapegoat for the nation's troubles. The once celebrated contributions of Ghanaian community were overshadowed by a rising tide of xenophobia. This was the beginning of the alienation of foreigners in Nigeria. Aliens in Nigeria were seriously threatening the country's peace, and Nigerians were not willing to take it. The public consensus stated. The situation became heated in the 1970s when a Cameroonian expatriate named Muhammad Marwa, nicknamed Metatsine, organized a religious uprising which resulted in the death of several people. Metatsine was an illegal immigrant, as were many of his followers from Burkina Faso, Niger and Cameroon. Some people regard this revolt as the second most terrible event in Nigeria following the Biafran War. It is also important to note that an old wound in the Nigerian-Ghana relationship existed in 1969 when the Ghanaian government issued the Aliens Compliance Order. Nigerians and other African immigrants were deported based on the argument that Ghana's economy was on the decline, and the cause was the foreigners. About 200,000 people were deported, the majority of which were Nigerians. Before this, there had been deportations of notable Nigerians by the Ghanaian government, among which were Simon Falaye, Biliaminu Oni, Alhaji Raji Bakare, and two other Muslim leaders, Osaman Laroden and Muhammad Baba. While this deportation was for certain individuals, the 1969 was the beginning of the mass deportation by the two countries. The last straw that broke the camel's back was the robbery at Ekome's house. Alexander Ekome, the then Nigerian vice president, was robbed by a group of armed robbers, which consisted mainly of expatriates. When the robbers were caught by the police, it was discovered that two of them were Ghanaians. Religious tensions and crime incidents involving foreign criminals further worsened the situation. Politicians started using the word aliens in their campaign manifestos. They blamed African migrants, especially Ghanaians, for the failing economy. Ghanaians had taken all the jobs and brought crime to Nigeria, and if elected, they would chase them out, they promised. On the morning of 17 January 1989, Alhaji Ali Baba, the Nigerian Minister of Internal Affairs, announced the immediate expulsion of all undocumented migrants. Many foreigners were stunned. They couldn't even remember how much it cost to get the legal papers, and nobody cared about getting them. Nobody thought it that important. We were brothers and sisters, they thought. At first, they thought that they could avoid leaving. Imagine the shock. One moment you are going about your business and the next you are told to pack your loads and leave. Over 2 million were being told to leave the country. About 1 million of them Ghanaians. This was too fast. It was a race against time. There was little time for preparation. Just a sudden overwhelming push to get out. Rumors spread that the government had ordered locals to beat up any illegal Ghanaians still in the country by January 31st deadline. Families scrambled to gather their belongings, unsure of where they would go or how they would survive. The exodus was chaotic. Millions who had lived in Nigeria for years scrambled to gather their belongings and leave. But here's the thing. How do you pack up a life? What do you carry? What do you leave behind? Those who could pack their belongings used the bags available, which happened to be the biggest plastic checkered bags. The bags used to be everywhere. Now they've become a scarce commodity. They were needed like oxygen for these immigrants. Those who could not pack all their belongings sold them cheaply. With a lack of resources and support, without a home, without a car, Ghanaian immigrants had to turn to something that could tide them over. These spacious, sturdy bags. The bags became replacement for a car, a home and resources. Family packs this bag full of everything they owned, making the bags weighty with both personal effect and political symbolism. It is from here that the iconic Ghana Must Go entered into the history of West Africa. The woven plastic sacks hastily packed with possessions became a poignant symbol of mass expulsion. Families were separated, businesses abandoned, and dreams extinguished. As the crisis deepened and left them with no other choice, the Ghanaians trooped en masse because they knew Nigeria was no longer a safe place for them. The irony is that Ghana wasn't really a place anybody could dream to be, even the Ghanaians. Inflation was at a record high of 122%. The economy was still struggling, was ill-equipped to absorb the influx of hundreds of thousands of people. Jobs were scarce and resources were stretched thin. And to make matters worse, Ghana was not even welcoming its own returning citizens. The country's leader, Jerry John Rawlings, had closed Ghana's border with Togo in response to an attempted coup against his government. Togo in turn closed his border with Benin to avoid influx of refugees, trapping Ghanaians in a sort of no man's land. So there they were, stranded, stuck at the borders of Benin, with nowhere to go and no country willing to take them in. The borders were a disaster, crammed with desperate people carrying chairs on their heads, dragging their Ghana Must Go bags, and selling on whatever they couldn't leave to make money to pay for fares that had doubled. Millions streamed out through any possible exit they could find, through Shaki in western Nigeria to northern Benin, down south at the Seme border in Lagos. Stampedes would kill many. Dozens were loaded onto open haulage trucks headed for Ghana. Cars sailed bumper to bumper from Benin-Togo border to Lagos, with people caught in sweltering heat and without water. Diseases spread. The United States prepared to send in aid. The League of Red Cross Society airlifted 500 tents, 10,000 blankets, and thousands of buckets. It was tragic. This mass deportation met global criticism. The act was condemned by many humanitarian organizations across the globe. The US Department of State said expulsion order was shocking and a violation of every imaginable human right. All this did not make the Nigerian government reverse the order. The country still insisted on expelling all illegal immigrants in the country. Also, there were claims that the corruption-riddled government of President Shehu Shagari ordered the deposition to divert attention from his shenanigans because the election was near. Truly, the Shagari government had to pull a stunt to divert the attention of Nigerians and win their votes because it had been a mediocre government since its entry into government. Many returnees found themselves in overcrowded camps, their dreams of a better future replaced by the grim realities of displacement and poverty. After some time, the Ghanaian military ruler Jerry Rawlings opened the Ghana-Togo border and left Togo no choice but to do the same with the Benin Republic and allow refugees to flow across like water. On getting home, they were welcomed by relatives and friends amid tears. Jerry Rawlings also visited some of them at Tema border and assured them that the government would provide assistance in every way possible. One would think this would be the beginning of the good days for Nigeria, but unsurprisingly, things didn't get better. In fact, a few years later, General Muhammadu Buhari, the Nigerian military head of state, ordered another expulsion of foreigners. This time, about 700,000 foreigners were expelled out of Nigeria, many of them being Ghanaians again. This became another stab in the back for Ghana, who had not recovered from the previous expulsion order. Although Ghanaians suffered a great deal in the 70s, 80s, by the 90s, Ghana economy began recovering, and today Ghana is one of the leading economies in West Africa. Nigeria, on the other hand, still battles insecurity and a failing economy. The tit-for-tat expulsion haunted relations between Ghana and Nigeria for many years. They still do. Even though Nigerian music plays on Ghanaian radio stations every morning, Ghanaian actors are a Nollywood staple, and trade between the two countries is rudely held, Nigeria has never apologized to Ghana for 1983 and 1985, and Ghana has never apologized for 1969. Perhaps they never will. An estimated 2 million Nigerians live in Ghana today. I hope history does not repeat itself. Because if it does, it is the Nigerians that will be carrying their Ghana must go, or maybe better put, Nigeria must go back home. Looking back at the story of migration, economic strife, and political maneuvering that left both Nigeria and Ghana with deep scars, was this poetic justice or a tragic replay of history? Whatever the case, the parallels were hard to ignore. Both nations had now experienced the pain of being expelled from a country they had called home. Has the scars of this event healed? How long will it take to heal? Nobody knows. But this we know: the absence of foreigners does not lead into a healthy economy. Thank you for watching this episode. Till I see you again, bye bye. And if you enjoyed this, pass this on to someone. Be a student of history and be a sharer of history.